try out in Gulfport and have to pay.
Yeah.
I don't wanna do that yet.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call the order of July 13th, 2023 budget workshop together. Announcements, July 20th, discuss and finalize FY '24 budget. We'll recess this meeting. Okay. All right. Tonight's other funds and projects excluding utilities. You wanna walk us through what you got, Mr. Riso?
Yeah, we'll take it from here.
Okay.
You've gotten two handouts, and I apologize, I didn't email this all out sooner. I know you just got a printout in front of you. Most of this in these funds are gonna be dealing with grants and projects, and where do they need to be accounted for. Through our audit process, we've learned a little bit on things in the utilities and harbors in particular have to be in the 400s. Those are the kind of the enterprise funds. So if you're spending money on like ARPA, sewage, it's not in the 100 accounts, like where we had the ARPA funds, 108 I think was the number. So we've kind of had to spend time creating some newer funds and separating our modernization use tax that we're spending possibly on some sewer compared to what's spending on roads, and so it's confusing. So I just want to, and it's a lot of pages.
Our book
And it's a
used to
lot of
be
fun.
in the 80s with 100 and
But
102, so it's 20-something pages added to stuff.
So- the first thing I would draw your attention to is kind of just a spreadsheet of just all the projects, 33, that we currently have kind of in action. Showing you what the project title is, what the funding source is, the local match, what other funding sources are out there that are providing funds, any grant funding that we've received for it, and then kind of total project cost. Kind of use that total project cost of guesstimates on estimates and things like that that we know about. The greens are really those that are highlighted that are either underway, currently bidding, hopefully finishing soon, or already kind of finished and recently. And then you can kind of see where number 9, I think we've got our permit. Yeah, I think we got notification today or yesterday on Ramonita for permitting. So that'll should be ready to roll soon. I think harbor dredging is getting pretty close. Other harbor repairs. The boardwalk is, I think, 90% finished on design. We've got approval from the state. So there's things that are just kind of marching. And so with all that, we got to be looking at, okay, cash flow and just what do we have out there? Okay, so some projects we may have to have conversations of, do we push to 25 or, how do you make it all work type of thing. It just kind of gives you a list of everything that we currently have out there and where it's coming from. And then we've had to make sure that these projects are kind of all accounted for in these various funds. We've accounted for them, and that doesn't mean it may happen in FY '24. But we've tried to show the revenue, tried to show the expense, just in case it does. If it gets delayed, then we'll push it to the next year.
Okay.
But if it didn't, then we'd have to do budget amendments and things like that. Okay. And obviously, if it doesn't happen, there's no income or no expense from the grant type of thing. Does that make any sense? And if anybody wants that Excel, I know Doug asked for this in Excel. I'm happy to send it to you. If you want me to send the whole council an Excel spreadsheet, happy to do it.
That'll be fine. Yes, sir.
So that's what I kind of keep track, kind of monitor things on.
Okay.
So if you look at, again, we're trying to focus tonight on the various funds, excluding utilities. We'll have utilities next week. Alan Barfield from Mississippi State will be in town next week. That was kind of unexpected. We're actually meeting again tomorrow via teleconference. He's the one doing the rate study for us throughout our utilities. And when our last meeting, I think the Friday, Thursday, he's like, hey, I'm going to be in town. We're having some meetings. You want me to come? And I was like, we have a council meeting. I was like, yeah. So this works out well. So he'll be coming just to kind of present what he's done and how his method of breaking down gas, water, wastewater, and sewer. And our 4 main kind of, I'm going to call them streams of income and streams of expenses, and making sure kind of where are we charging appropriately, kind of going through with y'all. So I just kind of said, push that to next meeting, okay? Which I would tell you then, it may not be in a position of finalizing the FY '24 budget, because we'll probably spend some time in the weeds on utility rates and where, letting him do his thing with y'all, okay?
Okay.
So on page 19, that's kind of the capital lease fund. This is basically mirrored, in looking at kind of what we did last year. This kind of tees y'all up in case the council says, hey, we want to buy a truck, or we want to buy a widget, and you're doing a lease purchase for it. There's, your loan is your revenue, your expense is your truck. It washes, and it becomes a fixed asset. But if you don't do it, and you'll notice this year, we didn't do a lot of it, but it was pretty much the same thing. And it's just a little bit kind of plugged in for each department. And again, each one of those would have to come to y'all if they decide to buy a truck on lease purchase, so.
So we're setting aside, 1.3 million for this?
You're actually not setting aside anything. It's just if you decide to do a lease purchase for something,
This is a budget.
then you would
It's
have
just
it,
a
you would
budget.
have it in the budget to be able to pull the trigger without having to do a budget amendment for it.
This would
But
be money.
it's non-cash until you decide to do something. So it's not pulling anything away from anywhere else until, the revenue stream would be a bank loan
Would be your loan.
and then buy the
Right.
vehicle. I'm gonna use truck for an example,
Right.
and they would offset, but it wouldn't come out of your operations. If at any time you said, hey, we'd rather pay cash for that, then you just don't use this fund.
Right.
You go pay cash for it.
Cool.
So again, it just kind of built in, and it was the same thing as last year for all the departments. That kind of covers all the way to page 26. You can see with each department, it's kind of plugged. Again, it doesn't mean they're spending that. They're not. Page 27 begins your 05 account. That's your municipal reserve account, where a lot of projects end up getting funded. You'll see we've kind of focused in there because the stuff like sidewalks, things that deal with roads or other infrastructure that we could use the modernization use tax for as our matching grant. We've kind of pushed it to that fund and got it out of the municipal reserve. So here you see the Depot Amtrak project for $270,000. That's the Amtrak or Southern Rail grant that they've awarded us. On the flip side, next page, you'd see the expense for it, which is for that one, Southern Rail, $549. So we've got that's a 50-50 match for the project. So 50 of their money, 50 our money. You've got the depot revitalization, and that's right at about 197. That's kind of our guesstimate of where we kind of think we'll be at the end of the year. What's left in that grant? That's the Gulf Coast Restoration Fund for the improvements out there. We are able to use some of those grant proceeds. I think we have like 300,000 plus right now left in it. They have said if we want to do the parking lot stuff with the SSC land to make those improvements, we could actually use those funds to help do that. But that's kind of where we're showing, again, the Gulf Coast Restoration Fund revenue, and right behind it, any future expenses that would be spent out there. And that hopefully would be cleared out sometime before the end of next year. Court Street Parking Garage, that's also Gulf Coast Restoration Fund. That's $1 million grant from that program. On the flip side, you see kind of right at 1.189 million for Court Street. And that's the first set of kind of improvements really on the exterior of that building. And that's being looked at right now. We have an architect and engineer, that's Jason
That's the one
and
we talking
Wyckoff.
about,
Not
first of the
Wyckoff,
year, shut it down for 3 months. We already got it blocked and start repairs on it, so trying to finalize what's gotta be done and everything to move that forward,
So we're funding that from where?
That's Gulf Coast Restoration Fund
Million was a
is
grant.
$1 million, and then we'd have
it's
200,000
20%
of our
match.
money
Where's 200,000 coming from?
through municipal reserve. Now, again, if you come down on the revenue page, town 27, we have a beginning balance estimated there at 218,000. In addition, we're transferring, we have 300,000 from the operating account, the general fund, of kind of what's left of it, and transferred into there to help deal with local matches. So it's that, you'll see it on the general fund, you'll see transfer out 300,000 into this fund. And those are kind of the projects that are under municipal reserve that's guesstimated for next year. Page 29 is our municipal reserve special. That's the police. And we don't have anything budgeted in there. We anticipate that the project is kind of coming to a close and be done. Reserve. Make sure I spelled that right. If I turn to page 35,
Let's go back to 31.
Yep. where are you?
Pickleball courts, we don't have anything. How are we funding those?
Capital outlay.
Was that in the Parks and Rec side?
That might be in that,
Mhm.
bond.
Okay. We've got $8,000, but,
But I'm gonna highlight that just because I'm
Yeah,
trying to, again, we spent a lot of time on it.
no, I'm sure y'all
Where's
got
the-
everything moving around, I just wanna
We're,
make sure we
yeah,
got
the
it.
other piece, we're asking a question, we received, and we haven't received it yet, but we've been awarded $250,000. If y'all remember when our legislators were here, it's called CapEx funds, so capital expense. And we received a letter that said, hey, y'all received $250,000. Mike made a comment about it when we were up here talking to us, and I wrote it down. I was like, what is that? I don't remember. We didn't get any notice of that. So there's a $250,000 grant coming to us. We have to, the MOU, I believe, is gonna be on this next agenda. We have to set up a separate fund, separate bank account for it. That's
Man,
required
we're
by
gonna be back
the
to 26
Department of
bank accounts, huh?
Finance. I asked the question when she called me. I said, do I have to set up a whole nother bank account?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Now you know how we got to 26, right?
No
So
parameters.
it says for infrastructure. So I wanna call the Department of Finance and ask them exactly, can you clarify infrastructure
Define.
for me? Does that have to be water, sewage, or roads? Gas? Can it be a pickleball court? Can it go into recreation? Can it go into some of our building repairs? You know, I don't know if y'all noticed the windows in City Hall when it rains, water comes through the windows. So those are, I mean, things that, is that something that we can use that fund for? I don't know that yet.
Well,
So
why
we
did
don't
y'all
have the
create a
funds yet. We
waterfall
know it's
inside
coming.
of City Hall.
What's that? It's almost like going on vacation, you know, but.
Once all that runs at night so you can sleep, your little waterfall.
So-
Trickle.
So what is it, he said it's $250,000, just a grant they given to the city? Did we request it?
No.
So they're just gonna give it to us?
Yeah.
Any strings or matches?
No strings, no matches. It's, Brent and
We got
Mike
that much
and those
faith.
guys, I think, when somewhere,
that
I guess
much
they
faith.
set up,
Thank you.
somewhere in the legislative docket of a bill they approved, there's a list of projects that goes through the state's general fund and it awards projects. And I think that's your legislators at work. So we got 250 to go do kind of what we want with it, but it says infrastructure, so I've just got some, what exactly is infrastructure in your
And
definition?
you're gonna get an answer for us
I
on
am.
that? Okay.
Pickleball might be a.
So
stretch
I'm
for
wondering, is
infrastructure, but give it a
recreation,
shot.
Alright.
So pickleball might be a stretch for infrastructure, but give it a shot.
I don't know, but it's worth
Yeah.
asking a question.
A park is infrastructure, right?
I would consider it infrastructure,
Park would be.
you know, but I
Swing
just wanna
set.
make sure that,
Economic impact.
cause we gotta report, quarterly reports and everything else back to the state.
Cool.
Bank accounts, I mean,
Right.
there's a reporting system. I just wanna make sure we're doing what's right.
Yeah.
So, but I think there's some opportunity, and if not there, then there's obviously other things we can use it for.
Yeah.
You know, including matching funds or something, some of these other projects that are infrastructure. We got
Right.
plenty of infrastructure projects.
Drainage, a good drainage project, once your culvert.
Drainage, I would think would be easily infrastructure. So I did highlight, page 31, pickleball, to make sure we have that somewhere.
Yeah,
okay?
somewhere it is.
I appreciate that. Under, page 35 is the emergency fund. Again, we put 400,000 in that account this year. Through our budgeting process, we're doing the same, matching it again next year, so that we can kind of grow that account,
Yeah, that's great.
okay?
So that'll bring it up to about 1.4 million?
Sir,
That'll bring it up about 1.4?
that would bring it to what I'm gonna guess 800,000, but I don't have the total.
It should bring it
balance-
to,
a balance.
to 1 million.
Well, we have 1 million now.
In the emergency fund, I don't have it, I just don't
I don't
remember
know
off
why
the top of my
that's
head,
not
Gary.
updated. Current budget 400, last year was 600.
Mhm.
Yeah, we should be around, yeah,
But
About
it's just
1.4,
showing
yeah.
income and expenses.
maybe what's the next page?
Let me highlight cash balance.
Yeah, thank you.
There should be a beginning cash balance on that line item.
Yes.
So I'll come back to that. Okay. Because we did move 400,000 this year, so I know it's got something.
And so any extra in, current revenues from the casino is gonna pour back in here also, correct?
We already moved 400,000.
Yeah, we started in the beginning of the year, actually.
Yeah, that was from the beginning of the
Yeah,
year.
we moved 400 just because that was what was budgeted.
Right.
Now it's a matter of making sure that we hit
So what are we
our
projected
projections.
to collect, by the end of this budget fiscal year? That's over what we budgeted.
I got it, go ahead.
You can look at. Well, when I did the June, and I did projections with y'all, the revenues for sales tax and casinos were pretty much still on par. And we had kind of inflated that in our budget this year, if you remember, to get the 400,000, kind of lifted it up on the revenue side, lifted it up on the expense side to show it. And we're hitting our target right now. We were on task for the revenue side. I don't know if there's anything on top of 400,000 yet,
We kind of
but if there
pre-funded.
is, that's a decision y'all can make to say, move the rest out, if it
We
goes.
budgeted, in this year's budget for gaming, 2.4. Projection is 2.344.
Yep.
So, we're gonna be right on budget.
Yeah, pretty close.
Okay.
But I agree that we probably should have a beginning cash
Yes.
in that number, so that when you see kind of, at the end, there should be more. It was 2 years. Page 37 is your narcotics task force funds. There's nothing, no revenues, no expenses in that account. I think we had $5,000 in there this year that
How come we don't
wiped out.
receive any more of those narcotic, funds anymore? I mean, that was a long time ago.
DOJ,
Yes.
there is some that's in the pipeline coming in, it just takes a while, we had someone new on it, it's been a few years now, but it takes time to build your cases and so money will start, but there's some that's out there waiting to get released that's supposed to trickle in or over to us. Yeah, and county, we got somebody back with that, we might get a little bit out of that, but mostly it comes from the DOJ side. Ernest Taylor works that, and so.
Okay. I just haven't seen any in a long
been-
time.
I think we might have received a little bit, very little, but it hadn't been much. But according to, we had this discussion whether it's worth having someone over there or not.
Yeah,
And was told that again, it takes a few years to get going and everything, to build your cases and all, but he also helps over here a lot as well on drugs. He also works some overtime with us and all. They cover all his overtime, through hiding and everything, so it's a pretty good asset. If we can start getting a little back out of it, would be great.
Page 39 is our fire insurance refund. So basically, the state sends a check every year
4%.
for a portion of, some kind of cutoff of homeowner's insurance that comes back and is rebated to the cities.
Yep.
That can be used for training and equipment and things like that. So we kind of see it in there at $50,000 of new money. And transferring some in from the general fund to give us a total. And again, we have a beginning cash balance of 124, so that would have 218,000 in that fund going in the beginning of the year. The next page shows us using some for uniforms, operating expenses, some equipment, some travel and training. We put, I think, 66,000 in capital expense, and we just kind of picked that number, just because if there's some equipment they want, we don't have to do a budget amendment for it, it's there, if y'all approve it type of deal.
Yeah, it's 103.
And then,
994.
obviously, it's $50,000 transfer out for the debt service. I think that's one of y'all trucks that were purchased several years ago.
Cool.
And it had a ending cash, 50,000, so you're looking, based on, if you would spend the money, then it would be a net zero, but, see that happening, but the budget's there in case you wanna approve something.
Yeah, right now, it's 103,994.26 is your money in that account, quarter cash balances.
Yeah.
As of 6:30. I don't know what that 124 is.
And right now, I know the fire department is looking at, dress attire, some dress uniforms. I think it was like 6,000. And their fire gear, I think they call it turnout gear. That's like, I've got a quote today
60
actually
or
from,
70.
it was 68, but I got another one from Ronald today that was 58. So I sent an email to him going, a week or two ago, you gave me one at 68, now it's 58. What's the difference? Haven't gotten a response to that yet.
We'd like to go ahead and get that
but-
in this year's budget if possible.
But those things, like their fire gear, that's what they're going into houses with, but they have a life expectancy on them, so that's what they tell me.
So why is
So
the
that may be coming to y'all.
cash balance on his budget sheet not match the cash balances on our cash balance sheet?
More or less.
Less. Well, this sheet here, printout says 124, cash balance is
So
103.
those are, I mean, that's gonna be plugged in. I mean,
That's
it's-
probably up to
that's-
date or something
so-
more than this one. Something might have
6:30.
came out.
Yeah.
Same date, 6:30.
Oh.
So we got a
I don't know.
$21,000 discrepancy. Just need to
No,
find out why.
it's-
Why it
that's
don't
gonna be
match.
from budgeting purposes, she's gonna have to key that in, so maybe that's with interest expecting to get or something to get it to 124. We're talking about account where it says 124?
Yeah, I mean, it has.
I can find out.
This page here has 124. Page 39, bottom right says
Yep.
124. My cash balance sheet says 103,994.26. And I'm sure it's just the numbers somewhere.
So that's kind of the activity in the fire rebate fund. Next one is our 120 account, which is federal grants fund revenues. For this, again, these are gonna be, in the 100 accounts means general fund operating stuff, not harbors and utilities. So you'll see a lot of stuff there that, I think we got 50,000 for Zeta. And you'll see on the expenses, the way it kind of flows out, which starts kind of on page 43. If there's any legal fees, there's any disaster supplies, a lot of it's disaster supplies that are reimbursable for each of the various departments, police, fire, streets and drainage. There's also disaster services for 80,000 underneath federal grants for streets, that's public works. You know, so overtime or any hours they're doing, that's how it flows back in. Hopefully, we don't have any need for any disasters, and there's nothing to spend there.
Hope not.
Page 48 goes to the ARPA. Again, if you notice 121, the 100 accounts for funds. And you don't see anything budgeted through there, because what we've done is kind of separated that into the street type of stuff to the utilities and pushed stuff out of there so we can better account for it according to our auditors. There's no activity. 180 is our modernization use tax. So you'll see some activity in here, especially when we start talking about projects. These are gonna be mostly your MEMA grants, things that are dealing with the Ida roads, Ward 6 elevation, and then we can use the modernization use tax as our local match.
Okay.
So on those portions, the same thing for all those GRPC grants for Washington Street's sidewalk, Pine Street, Ranch Street, Sienna Street. And you can see all those, what they total up. Now, again, will those all happen next year? I'm not sure. Hopefully, but we've got a lot of other projects, but we're accounting for the revenue. We want to account for the expense just in case the project rolls.
Yeah.
Okay? And then again, we're using the modernization use tax to fund that. We're estimating in this fund about 500,000 of new money next year flowing in from that source, with a portion also going into what we call the modernization use tax for water and sewer only in the 400 accounts. So we kind of divide that revenue up a little bit for those other projects. And then you see we're starting with a hefty balance by the end of the year of about $1 million in that fund. So with all that, if all the grants flow through, you're looking at about 4.5 flowing through there with the projects. And then you flip the page to 52. Again, it's under Public Works. And you see the various projects. And there's downtown striping improvements in there that we put. The 603 turning lanes, the ADA transition study that we're doing, all the sidewalks, the IDA roads. Again, IDA roads right now is bidding. It's actively advertised.
Okay.
And then Sienna Road drainage is in there as well. You also, on page 54, see 2 transfers out. That's our obligations for 2 of the bonds, the 2020 bond and the 2016 bond for $150 each. And then all those projects went through both income and expenses. You'd have an ending balance of about $163,000 in that account. I personally don't think all the projects are going to flow through, but it puts if the project's there, it's got capacity to go from a budgeting perspective.
So Mike, back on 52s where.
Yes, sir.
We have drainage materials, 610, 300, 610.
Yes.
We have 0 there as well.
Mm-hmm.
I got a question mark on that.
I mean, is that, if we're talking about modernization tax, if that's where we're gonna do the expenditure, or, again, just, I mean, we spent some of it this year, you know.
Page 55 is your debt service revenues. So this is going to be a lot of the transfers in that are coming in from various accounts. So debt service from fire department, debt service in public works, debt service for police. Those are transfers coming out of general fund, each of those departments that have bought police cars or trucks, and we're paying for that over time. So the debt service is coming from general fund, flowing into this fund, and if you, again, you see some beginning cash transfer in from fire department at the bottom, or fire rebate probably. And behind it, you see all the various loans, I'm going to call them, on the different pieces of equipment for a total debt service of $575,000.
And I think November is our last ladder truck payment.
Think, yeah,
I think it's the ladder truck we bought first, wasn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
One of them was 2024 though, wasn't it?
I thought it was 23.
No, I think we just, because I was asked at the last meeting, hold on a
I
minute.
remember y'all sent an email out about
Yeah,
it.
he sent an
We didn't send is it 24, Doug?
I don't know, Mike.
I haven't-
Well, he sent an email out, and again,
It was the same truck. Email was sent out to 24, but
I think it was 24.
okay, August.
I don't know why I thought 23.
Okay. Well, and I didn't know
I'll
it's the same
check and
truck,
see,
but I
'cause
just, could be a different truck, but I know the email thought was a 24 number. Either way, it's getting close.
Yes.
Well, it's probably time to turn around.
There you go, buy another.
Mhm.
So on page 58, we go to Fund 2020, which is our 2020 Go Bond Fund from the revenues that are coming in from. I wrote this down as a question for me and I didn't get it answered, only because I forgot to ask. I'm assuming y'all, again, this is me being an assumption real quick, that y'all put some type of millage in place for your bond payment, because there's a revenue stream coming in. It says all these property taxes and stuff.
Mhm.
So there must have been something y'all did, and
Yeah,
I
we
wrote
backed
my
the
note, and I
backed
forgot,
the
I never
note
went
with
back and got that answer.
I mean, we backed the bond with millage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's flowing in there for $310,000 to help make the payment. And then you see a modernization use tax, $150,000 transfer taken from that tax in. So I'm assuming y'all dedicated at some point when y'all made the bond that you'd be pulling some of those funds over, which is what a lot of cities do. So $460,000 in revenue. You see the debt service on the next page, interest, bond cost, principal being paid. It flows out, has a net balance of $14,000 at the end of the year, once we make the revenues and expenses. Page 60 is the 245, that's the 22 negotiable note, debt service. So we see transfers in, they're all zero, there's some interest income. And then we have a transfer in from, the capital and maintenance harbor account for 406. So this is our debt service on the harbor loan for 1.8 million, and paying the bill that we gotta, when that note comes up each time. And on the next page, you see the principal, the interest, bond costs that go with it, blah, blah. It finishes sliding in with like $300 in the bank on that one, type of deal. Page 62 is account 270 or fund 270. That's your 2016 debt service, road and bridge bond y'all did. And that was, again, you see a transfer in from the general fund for 120,000 and some change. Some interest income, transfer in from the modernization use tax for 150. Total income of 270. Next page shows the principal payment, the bond payment, bank fees. And you finish off with like 14,000 after you make your payment in that account. Page 64 is account 300, that's DOJ funds. Again, we didn't budget any revenue transfers in or anything, we just don't know. But there is a beginning balance of like 79,000. And then on the next page, we kind of, allocated some funds for capital expense of like 60,000 if you wanted to buy a police car for cash or radios
That
or
needs to be taken
something.
out.
What's that?
Any expense needs to be taken out.
Okay. You wanna zero it?
Yes. Only reason we cannot budget for that, it's gotta be something that's not budgeted. So I would just leave that at 0.
Let's ask a question. There.
And I don't know if this is considered budget, it's nothing
I'm just wondering if
specific.
it can't be budgeted in the general fund.
Can't be,
Is what I'm wondering.
not supposed to be anything
Yeah.
that's budgeted ahead. It's supposed to be like for, something comes up.
You got it for operating
But
expenses and then.
in order to spend money, you gotta have a budget line item.
But you have to go back in a minute.
Yeah, okay. I'll get clarity on that.
Yeah. I'm-
Clear as mud.
And they might let us, I don't know. I know it's a pretty touchy subject.
Oh, page 66, 2020 Go Bond revenues. This is the bond that we have a balance still in that can be used for things such as that pickleball court, I think somebody said, which has like 539,000 or so in it right now. This is one I think y'all got, again, it's 2020. So there is some rules on having to spend money and be at like 85% of expenditures. So I think we beat that, obviously. But, it's one that we probably need to try to finish up in these next year or so, and get it off your books. What we've done here is kind of on page 67, look, and just put some money under capital outlay. Doesn't mean that they're these projects, but they can be. But you can always, budget-wise, you can move it between 900 accounts, that the council can do. So we put some money for, this roof leaks, I don't know if you're aware, so the idea of, Ronnie has come to us, but trying to have this roof repaired. Those windows in City Hall that have rainfalls, we just kind of threw some money in that. When the police move out, what do you do with the first floor? Fire department capital, that's the AC and the windows of trying to, and we don't know exactly what that cost yet, but kind of budgeting for fire department. So that's kind of what we kind of put up under there. It can be anything at the end of the day. It can be pickleball, it can be road paving. It's still a capital expense depending on what y'all decide to do with it. Okay. Page 68 is the harbor construction $1.8 million negotiable loan. This is the actual proceeds from the loan that we have to spend down, and we have been. So it's approximately 600,000 or so beginning cash that we would need. It's kind of anticipated that in the next year that we would be spending for those FEMA projects.
So how far along are we with this
What's that?
to completion so we can get reimbursed?
We We're still waiting for approval for the dredging part of it, which is maybe 400,000,
half a million.
somewhere than that. And we also, I think we're ready to go out for the south wall. Is that been put out?
It hasn't been put out yet, but that's
But
coming.
It's coming,
Those are your two that's left out there.
big
Alright.
ones.
So you're dredging and that south wall by the railroad tracks. Now, that's all expense-wise from FEMA and stuff, you'll see that under the harbor area. So we put 600,000 in the capital, so page 69, right, 68.
68.
No, on page 70, you see capital expense, 600,000, just to wipe it out. And so that would be, as we get the first bill in or whatever for dredging or for the wall, we'd write the check out of here. The rest would come out of that harbor account. And then the FEMA money goes back into the harbor account. So, just kind of shows you how that's working. Page 72 goes into county road and bridge. So right in the middle of the page, you see transfer in, like 186. A little bit lower, you see transfers, non-revenue, county road and bridge, 186. So we get money directly from the county, and then we have, the county's kind enough to give us the other part, so we get 100% of road and bridge. We can spend it on road improvements and other things, such as that. You have some beginning
Excuse me.
cash balance. Go ahead.
No, I was telling Doug, this is where the street materials and things like that are.
Okay.
So you got 600,000. So you're looking at kind of, again, with new money coming in plus beginning balances, 974,000 in revenue. So kind of what a beginning kind of start would be. The next page, again,
So
mostly under
with
public
all
works.
this- with
Sir?
the- with this 974,000, what projects have you planned to use this money, or is this unbudgeted?
No, so next page, 73.
Yep.
You see supplies, street signs, supplies, 30,000. Street materials, 50,000.
Yep.
And, looking at the idea of the SMB, street paving project, after y'all do the Ida roads, if y'all do any more paving, before, is the idea of having them come back out, survey the streets again, get us an idea of what streets are in good condition, bad condition. You know, I used that as a valuable tool previously, and
What's-
identifying how we're gonna spend money over a 5-year period on street repairs.
What's the 450 for capital outlay streets?
That would be a street paving project.
That's
But-
the
but we-
streets
that's
we're
an
looking at
So-
now, isn't it?
Is that the list we
We
turned
don't
into
have it
you?
right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have that project, but that's.
You don't have it
That's-
complete,
that's
it's not ready to
funds
go,
Right,
but it's
Once we
meant
get
to be there as a street paving project.
gotcha.
Also looking at repaving the parking lots, 2 parking lots downtown with that, and striping and all. That would, could be used to do this as well. The parking over by Stanislaus, but on the other side of, the depot area, but we got the loan that can pay for that as well. You'll see how it works out there.
Yeah, the Stanislaus one by the depot would be Gulf Coast Restoration
Yeah.
Fund. So on page 74 of this, you see a transfer out to a bond payment, or, transfer out general fund. That's putting some money back into general fund from there for all your public works kind of stuff. Fund 408.
And it
So
goes
the
on.
400s are kind of what you call enterprise funds. So now you're getting into more of,
Utilities.
I hate to use the word, it runs like a business. Your utilities, your harbor, those types of things. So when you're spending money on sewer and water, it can't be in those 100 accounts, it has to be in the 400 accounts. So page 85, in here you see, the intergovernment revenues, modernization use tax. Again, we separated some of that revenue from the 100s into the 400s. If the loan would go through and have a revenue stream for the loan for a water well, then there's revenue of 2 million. So we'll see how that plays out, but we've got it in there, and we also have the 2 million expense kind of for it, just kind of offset it. It washes. Ramonita Restore Act is a grant.
So on that water well, we estimated it'd be 2.6 million, right? So we'll have to do a budget amendment. We requested 2.6.
I think you're right.
Yeah, we requested 2.6.
But I think that,
I mean, cause that was an engineer
some
piece,
other
that's,
upgrades
that's,
as
well, that's
well.
fixing Harris Street well, plus the water, I mean, it was a whole.
It was
The loan was
2.6.
2.6 million, and that's, I think we applied for 2.6 million.
I think you're right. Where is it?
Yes.
I just wanna stick
Yep.
we went, I know what I gave this to Sissy. Water well, it's under 2.6.
We just don't wanna,
So again, you got Ramanita Restore Act, Go Mesa Sunset, DEQ Sewer Improvement Phase 2, 4.1. So that is us basically trying to go to the legislature in the spring. We submitted a Go Mesa grant. We've got Restore grants out there. If by any chance next spring, they would fund us from one of those sources or both of the sources to finish the sewer rehab project, that's the revenue stream.
Okay.
Don't know if it's coming or not. There's an offsetting side.
in and out if you
yeah.
get.
'Cause
On the other side, 4.1.
we got 8
to,
million right now, we
know,
needed 12 million, so that's the 4 million to complete the project.
But ideally, I mean, if we're well into that project, into the legislative session, and we've got one that's rolling, and we know where we need to go with it, I think it's a prime target
Right.
for funding.
Oh, yeah,
And so hopefully, by the summer, we'd have award letters and be able to keep moving so that it would happen, at least by end of fiscal year next year. So again, with that, you're looking at a net balance at the end of the year, if it all happened, at $3,000. ARPA grant utilities. So this is again the 400, since ARPA is designated to sewer. We couldn't we had to take it out of the 100s, put it in the 400s. So this shows the Mississippi MWCI grant revenue of 4.1 million. That's our match from the state, okay, that we got. Then you show 700,000 grant from the county that they provided for us that we were able to use to get more match from. So that's new money that would be coming through as we do this project. Then you have a beginning balance of 3.4, and that's the money, ARPA, that the city had already received and we've been just sitting on because we knew possibly this double, the matching opportunity was there.
Well,
So that's right at 8.3 million.
So we have these cash, these monies.
You have
held correct?
3.4 sitting in the bank in that
And
ARPA
when do these
account.
projects,
7, 8.
plan to start?
We've already bid and awarded with a notice to proceed
The
the
camera.
cleaning and the camera work for
Yeah, I saw that
1.5
on that
million.
project.
That's
So
supposed
that-
to be starting any day.
That could be, they were here this week doing,
So we
I
gotta
think,
use them
testing two
within
to go take a
2
look.
years?
26.
We gotta use these funds
25.
within,
Yeah, we should
Yeah,
use it all next year.
And in talking with DEQ and stuff on this, I think I think probably ahead of most cities on where we are with this
awesome.
project. That's why I think the opportunity.
Gives the
next
leg up on
legislative
everybody else
session
when
is
we
a
rolling.
good opportunity.
Yeah.
So this is the fund that whole ARPA, I'm gonna call it the ARPA project, sewer rehab would be flowing through. I'm gonna call it phase 1 for the money we currently have in place, like about 8.4, 8.5 million. It's not the 4.1 I call it phase 2. And again, it washes out to a zero balance at the end of the day. Page 89 goes into account 450. This is our municipal harbor. Basically, the operations of the harbor. We're looking at about right at $1 million in total revenues is what's estimated. And if you go through the expenses, they're pretty much, everything's in there, pretty much the same expenses.
so we're not operating at a deficit?
No, it's right there. It's meant to basically break even on the operations. Is that gonna happen? I mean,
We'll-
budgeting wise, it's revenue
we'll
in,
look and
revenue
see
out,
Where we need
but
to be too on revenues.
you're making
But
money
increase.
down there. I mean, you're not getting rich, but you're not losing money
How much you have?
on
built in-
operations. Let's make,
How much you have built in for maintenance? Cause I remember we
the
had that
next one-
report.
on
and,
that we have, where's the transfer out of that one? Where did I see that? I think it was 100,000 moving. Page 92 has transfer out 100,000. to CNM, to capital maintenance.
For the harbor?
Yeah.
And what's CNM?
So- Capital and maintenance of fund.
I mean, sorry, where's it coming from?
It's coming from the harbor operations, so we're taking 100,000 out of operations and sticking it into the capital maintenance fund for harbor.
So they can make these repairs?
They can do different repairs, yeah, so basic,
Oh,
long-term
is
repairs and
Sean
things like that.
starting to look
So-
at that?
What's that?
Is Sean starting to look at taking care of repairs? Because I noticed they were talking about a lot of boards and deck boards and things like that.
And that,
that are-
this is the type of fund that would come out of, yes.
I'd like them to give us a report on this and see when he's gonna start this so that we can
Okay.
kinda keep up where the progress is on that.
Mm-hmm.
So the next fund, page 93, is 451, and that's your harbor grants and special projects. So on this one, that's when you're seeing the MEMA money from harbor repairs, from the dredging, and from that wall at the, what do you call it, the south wall? You also see a Tidelands grant where we merged FY '24 and FY '23 together for 657 to use to help fund some of that settling and other improvements that we need to do to, I think they call it Pier 1.
That's along the
Location.
sidewalk there,
Right.
along the east wall, and then also the event deck.
Mm-hmm.
Again, these are the revenue streams. And then the last one is the Gulf Coast Restoration Fund that we received for the boardwalk at 1.4 million this last year.
So on these revenue streams, we haven't actually received all these.
No, it's gonna be reimbursable as you go. The MEMA stuff, I mean, you're submitting to MEMA to get those dollars. Tidelands is, to me, is the quickest. Tidelands and Go Mesa, really, from DMR, is kind of the fastest
Mhm.
from a turnaround perspective. The FEMA money, to me, is the slowest. Gulf Coast Restoration Fund has been actually quick coming from the state, too. So that's 3.4 million of, again, it would be new money coming in as we submit receipts.
So when, that company comes back, with their report or
Uh-huh.
thing, are we gonna be able to start that project?
I would hope so.
The
Yeah.
repairs,
You've got 600 and plus $1,000 dedicated in that Tidelands grant to help with that project.
Okay.
So I'm supposed to have a phone call with them next week to find out kind of what their initial, they've done their assessment, so those are gonna get, at least have a phone call to find out where we're at and then maybe do a walkthrough. So the next page 94 talks about the expenses that go through there. Capital outlay, again, you're dealing with the projects that we just talked about that are flowing through that area. And at the end, we end up transferring out, again, if all these things would happen, we'd transfer out about $247,000 and put it back into the capital maintenance fund for the harbor. And be able to use that to pay down things and whatever. That kind of looks at that, again, if all the projects happened last year, you'd finish with an ending balance of about $500. Ideally, you'd be finished your projects and it'd have a zero balance and you close the fund. Until the next storm.
Yeah.
Page 96, 452 is your capital maintenance and repair for harbor. Again, you see the flow in from operations of 100,000, that transfer. At the bottom, you see a transfer out to 451. Transfer in, I'm sorry, to 451 of 247. That's us moving those other funds over that I just talked about. And then you have a beginning balance. So you got total revenues in there, about 422,000. We put some basic expenses. What, property maintenance, 6,000. So that's kind of those boards and other just stuff they would do. 10,000 for capital expense. And then we've got to transfer out for our loan payment that we have to make out of there to kind of wash it. Again, depending on how all that would work out. But- So those are your funds and projects.
That was fun.
This is the most, I mean, to me, this is the most challenging part of just knowing all the projects and where, and having to separate those utility harbor funds from the general fund stuff, that was challenging. Again,
Question. 501c3s, people asking for anything, are we doing that this year or no? I just had an email from somebody that wanted me to submit something. I didn't know what the process was gonna be, if it was gonna be
Funded anybody.
a meeting to have them come ask for it, or,
Well, I mean, it's up to us. I mean,
that's what I say, I didn't know, that's why I didn't.
traditionally, we don't run hard.
Exactly, I mean, I know, that's why. I just, if you want, I'll just send this email out to everybody, or this letter, or I can read it, either way.
We all got it.
Okay, y'all got it, okay, I just received it a minute ago, so,
all got it.
okay, y'all got it, alright, so.
Email?
Yes, sir, so, okay, I think everybody got it then. It was from, Jordan River Community Associations about the lighting up the Jordan River fireworks event and festival. And it was a request for up to $2,500. So I just wanted to announce that, and if everybody got the letter, just read it, and if anybody wants to discuss it, I'll send it to you right now.
Are they basically asking for funding for
Funding.
fireworks show?
Yep.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, sir. Yes. And I didn't know if it was funding anybody or not, or what we was doing, so that's what I wanted to ask.
Fund the one for New Year's for the city.
Yeah.
I don't think we've historically, I mean, that's a slippery slope when you do one request and you get multiple, and then where do you draw the line? So, I mean, I don't think there's anything in the budget outside of,
Well, the thing
Okay.
about it is, you're putting the taxpayer on the hook for that, and they not probably, most of them don't even go watch the fireworks display to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, it's, a lot of
One
people
for the
go, like
city
I
if
say,
you
but,
can do it.
We used to
Yeah.
give
Mhm.
Little Miss Poppy $25 and Little Miss football players $50. On my briefcase, I still got an old sheet, handwritten sheet. We used to get us this and that and $25, $30.
well, and I know that's historically been our question, is how do you pick one
Oh, yeah.
501c3 over another one
So
to,
we decided we.
I do think you would
That's
open
what
up,
we
I
do
don't know if one of y'all said it, but about kind of a slippery slope.
yeah.
And I
Okay.
think you do have a city-sponsored event for New Year's if you were,
Center
do
nonviolence
something,
comes in,
it'd
they'll
be
come
more of
in,
a-
you know, for
Mhm.
requesting funding and like,
Okay.
no, we're gonna do fireworks and stuff
Alright.
like that. It's just, yeah, it's hard,
Hmm.
hard.
Okay. Alright, so everybody got the letter.
at our next,
Discuss it.
meeting next 20th,
What day is
uh,
that?
we'll have Alan Barfield come and present kind of his findings. Again, we're meeting with him tomorrow on utility rate study. He's got spreadsheets and columns and numbers all over the place.
So you're like.
He has our budget.
Can
I
we
do
get an
want to
advance
kick in.
copy?
Sir?
Can we get an advance copy so we can see what it looked like?
Yeah, I mean, I'll send you whatever he's gotten, but I mean, we haven't gotten the full spreadsheet. We're still talking through kind of each column right now, and that's what we're meeting again tomorrow on, but we'll get you whatever you want. On
Yeah, I'd like
whatever
to
he
see it
provides,
before
we'll
we
give
come
it to
into
you.
a meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, alright.
So
Okay.
we basically took our operating budget for utilities, divided into 4 columns. If we can, like gas purchase, we can obviously identify gas purchase is going to the gas income stream. Whereas maybe salaries for utilities, what we did there was 40% to sewer, 40% to water, 20% to gas.
Okay.
So we couldn't really tell what it was, but that's how we kind of split the percentages. Because you got, I think, 900 plus gas people and,
Thousand gas, you know, customers, 4,000 sewer, 4,000 water, so we just did it.
Mhm. Yeah.
and so, and then looking at our rates, and then when he gets here with y'all, we can look at it and say, hey, if you want to add $1 to the water rate, what does it do over the next 5 years? With a 4% inflation or a 3% inflation. So you really have control, and he doesn't care. He just says, tell me what inflation rate you want to use,
Yep.
And it's going to show you kind of your projected bottom line going out 5 years if that's the rate, So, I mean, pretty cut in the weeds a lot, but so I just kind of, when he said he could be here, he was going to be in this area for something, I was like, I think we kind of were like, absolutely, come talk to the council.
Alright.
I think it's a great exercise. In fact, I pointed him, Waveland is looking at doing something similar to this. So I gave him the number, Jay Trapani, the number for him, so.
Okay. Good.
So we may, I guess what I'm getting at, I think we're gonna probably spend an hour plus on that, I would think, if not more. I think it's a long process. So I want y'all to have the time to do it. So what I'm letting at, we've got to have a special meeting at the end of July because of the bond thing, as a public hearing.
Okay.
So that may be the time to try to really get back to the bigger budget, saying, all right, do we have anything to tweak in general fund? Do we have anything to tweak in utilities or whatever? If that's good with y'all.
Okay.
Kind of,
yeah.
that's kind of the playbook I've been kind of using just to kind of go through.
Okay.
But, again, I've gotten emails from y'all on different questions. Please keep those coming. If I can get that answer, I will.
All right.
And again, made notes on today as well. You got
Okay.
anything?
Any other questions from the council? Discussion? All right. Motion to spread the notice of the budget workshop on the minutes.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Reed.
Second.
Second, Mr. Seal. Any discussion? Vote to motion.
Aye.
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 Aye. Passes 6-0. Next is motion to adjourn July 13th, 2023 workshop. I think he
No,
means
the 20th.
recess the
Next week's
20th.
We're gonna recess the 20th.
I was confused for a minute at
Oh my
first too.
God.
I was like,
Yeah.
but then I figured it out. All
One
right.
of the things, the reason also for recessing is we've been putting a lot of hours, Sissy and I, on this. This is taking a lot of time. So trying to look at where we are and truing up kind of the budget with the budget amendments to try to see where are we with everything. I don't think I'm gonna have that by 5 o'clock tomorrow. So trying to work and give us a little bit more time on that. So if we can do possibly budget amendments on that next one, that, if it's a special meeting, I mean, you really can't vote. I mean, you're kind of limited on what you're doing as a workshop.
Yes. Mhm.
But a recess meeting gives you some capacity. So that's where, in my head, what I'm trying to do to give us a little bit more time. And if we need to, we can kick it to August, it'll kill us, but we just gotta true up things like the comprehensive plan, redistricting, when we went through the, June financial statement, so.
Okay. Good.
So just to clarify, so the meeting next week on the 20th, that's gonna involve the entirety of the budget, correct? Next week's meeting?
No, it'll primarily be focused on utilities
Okay.
with
Okay.
y'all. But then we'll have a meeting after that, that would be, let's try and true up and kind of
Go
trying to
back
get
through
to
it and get
where
some.
we're getting finalized on some things. And again,
Okay.
if there's any other questions out there that, I mean, I've gotten some emails and I've tried to respond to them. So, we're just trying to bite off a little piece at a time.
Okay. Good deal.
All right.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, that's for
At the end of
Yeah.
Tuesday, you recess to Wednesday, to
Yeah,
Thursday.
To the 20th? Okay. Recess
Yeah.
Tuesday night's meeting. Okay. All
But
right.
Tuesday's a regular meeting. You don't have to do
Yes.
anything to get that one.
Yeah, okay. All right, so tonight we just need to adjourn then.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion,
Motion.
Mr. Reed. Second, Mr. Seal. Vote to motion. Aye.
Aye.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.